As I pored over the tomes, laid in piles around my father's library, I stopped to rest my eyes, leaned back, and took a breath. It was just me at the time, as Bree had already gone home, and I was left fretting the holiday thaw of Mariah Carey and the dread of holiday capitalism. One book in the collection kept pulling at the corners of my mind, leather-bound with a face stretched taut over the cover. Sunken eyes stared at nothing, and the lazy maw drooped without drooling. A low resonance echoed from within its pages that ruffled and fluttered as if the grimoire itself heaved a sigh in time with my own. Winter was approaching, and I had not come up with a solid topic yet for this year's holiday mythology. In years past, I had talked about Krampus and my meeting with him. I uncovered the origins of Yule, the parallels between Santa Claus and the Norse Allfather, and even deciphered the secret identity of Charles Dickens's elusive Three Spirits. But lately, existence has rendered me in a malaise where the ideas don't flow and the stagnation becomes as suffocatingly quiet as a tomb. I stared at the book, Necronomicon, a relic left in my care by the demon Organa, an instrument she uses to test the hubris of men. For me, it's my portal, my gateway, my library card to a realm of eldritch solitude and unpaid return fees. I cracked the cover and it groaned like an elderly man experiencing chiropractic pseudoscience for the first time. I needed answers. I needed myths. I needed something to terrify, to haunt my viewers with something far worse than the impending vocal cords of a 90s-era pop star artist turned capitalist harbinger. The pages were like a catalog of undead beings, with a recurring creature creeping across the pages and baring its fangs along the margins. And then a voice whispered to the edges of my mind, tugging at the threads of sanity like Andrew does the threads of time. Do a part 2 on vampire myths. It's your most popular video. I recognized the voice immediately. The intonings of a cephalopod librarian, madness incarnate, relegated to cataloging the cosmos in a fortress of knowledge so ancient it made the Library of Alexandria look like a Barnes and Nobles. I shuddered internally. Cthulhu, the Psychic Patriarch, and Chaotica's daddy.
Don't forget me. You wanted the expertise of a vampire slayer for this one, right?
I sure did. I read that book you gave me, but, well, your expertise is going to be invaluable here, Andrew. Stories about vampires and the winter season are surprisingly common, from Balkan, Slavic, and modern Greek. When the world goes cold, blood runs warm, and it draws those who feast upon it like moths to flame. It's in this region we can find the closest origin where vampires come from, with 5 prominent examples. To understand vampire myths, we have to look at a couple of proto-vampires. Upior is a demonic being from Slavic and Turkic folklore. Belief in the Upior spread across Eurasia, and its name evolved in the migration. Taking from the Turkic Ompir, the V sound was added by the Old Bulgarian dialect, which places the V sound before the large nasal vowel on. V, on, pier. Vampire, vampire. The Upior was a person who was cursed before death, a person who died suddenly, or someone whose corpse was desecrated. As the myth persisted, other origins were attested. If a person died and an animal jumped over their body, it could turn them into an Upior.
That sounds similar to the myth of the Kate Sith. Wouldn't it jump over dead bodies to try and steal their souls?
True, it is. Martin always said they were careful to keep cats out of the room when someone died.
And that's not all. Suicide victims, unchristened babies, or people who were killed by another Upior could also become one. But here's the real kicker. Unlike most other vampire myths, Upior were commonly thought to go about in broad daylight. If any of these exist in Atonement, you know they've got to be some of the most highly protected individuals in the city. Ones like, I don't know, Cain?
They're still nocturnal hunters, though.
Apparently living people were sometimes thought to be Upiors as well. People like Andrew who are redheads or left-handed. Upior have no body hair, might have a slightly larger head, messed up teeth, unibrows, a limp. The list literally goes on and on. Just about anybody who was socially an other was accused of being an Upior. Upiors would also appear at night carrying their heads in their hands or with glowing wolf-like eyes. Those that were active during the day could be seen climbing up the walls of buildings, shrieking through the streets, and feasting on anyone who heard and responded to their cries. Their hunger for human blood would cause them to bewitch people who were asleep, causing them to sleepwalk, but they also possessed inhuman strength that could rip a victim to shreds like a beast. Some widows and widowers claimed that their husbands or wives would return to them as Upiors, and women who died in childbirth were thought to return at night to nurse the orphaned infant.
I mean, aside from the whole eating people thing, at least they cared about family?
I guess so, but listen to some of these Upior remedies. You'll immediately be able to recognize the origin of the vampire myths as well. Upior were said to be revealed in mirrors. Dead bodies who crossed a threshold to the house could become Upiors, so they were taken out through a special exit. Heads of garlic, bricks, or iron chunks were placed in the mouths of Upiors to prevent them from returning. Branches of wild rose, hawthorn, or blackthorn were put in coffins, and if all else failed, poppy seeds would be scattered all over the inside of the coffin to preoccupy the Upiors with collecting them. This is also similar to knotted ropes tied near the grave that would distract Upiors with untying them. Destroying an Upior's grave, or preventing it from returning before sunrise, would cause it to melt into a black sludge. Another protective method was to drink the Upior's blood or eat the soil of its grave.
Those are all really common vampire slayer tactics. Everyone knows about vampires and garlic, their collecting habits, and their aversion to mirrors. Though the stories get twisted around somewhat, the origins remain the same. By the way, Agni, Upior myths have a direct link to myths about the Strigoi. Both of them are said to have dual hearts and dual souls.
Yeah, I think that's where we see the blending of how Upiors really evolved into vampires. The oldest example of Slavic vampires comes from the Romanian Strigoi, sometimes called moroi. These pre-18th century evil spirits were especially active during winter months. The Strigoi can be a living person born under certain conditions. They could be the seventh child of the same sex in a family, lead a life of sin, die without being married, be executed for perjury, die by suicide, or die from a witch's curse. Physically, Strigoi are said to be bald on the top of their head, do not eat garlic or onions, avoid incense, and towards the feast of St. Andrew, November 30th, they sleep outdoors. Their spine is elongated in the shape of a tail covered with hair. Strigoi take the milk from cows, take manna from the wheat, the strength of the people, stop the rains, bring hail, and bring death among men and cattle. On St. George's Day, April 23rd, the boys are expected to bring water to the girls so that they don't suffer from Strigoi, but also so they don't turn into these creatures. As far as I can tell, though, this is actually just has to do with making sure girls don't get dehydrated during times of drought. I've never heard of anyone actually turning into a Strigoi because of it. People claim the Christian God punishes the Strigoi who will not let the clean rain fall, and if it rains with the sun, it is believed that one of the Strigoi has been killed.
So, how do you stop a Strigoi? Those are pretty easy. First, you gotta find the grave. Religious types will claim you need a priest, but really all you need is to show it no fear. Priests typically fit the bill because they think they have a god behind them. But I've never needed a god, and I've finished off plenty of these things. Garlic, bald head, aversion to incense. Strigoi already shape a lot of the modern vampire story. And it's also where you take the concept of a stake through the heart. So you want to use oak, yew, or ash primarily. Hawthorn doesn't work.
Early Greeks spoke of a type of vampire called Kalakantaros. It is unique in that it could only go about its activities on Christmas Day and the week or 12 days afterward. The 12 days of Christmas. Children born during the week between Christmas and New Year's, or Christmas and the Epiphany, when the three wise men were said to have arrived at Bethlehem to present their gifts, were described as feast-blasted and believed to be predestined to become vampires. These vampires would roam the netherworld and emerge on Christmas Day to seize people with its extended fingernails and tear them to pieces. Unfortunately, this belief led people to look with fear and hostility upon anyone born during the forbidden period. If a child was born during these 12 days of Christmas, it was suspected of being a vampire. Their feet would be hung over a fire until their toenails blackened. The Greek vampires first appeared in 325 CE, but the myth persisted well into the 16th century. Though it was thought their time on Earth was limited, when they died, these vampires would return as half-human, half-animal creatures with black fur, red eyes, and large claws.
Hey, wait. That sounds kind of like a puka.
You're right, Brie, it does. But here's where the myth and the real world begin to cross. One of the earliest mentions of a historical Strigoi is the story of Yuri Grando Aliovic, who lived from 1579 to 1656, from the region of Istria. The villager is believed to have been the first real person described as a vampire because he was referred to as a Strigoi, Strigan, or Strigun in temporary local records. The legend tells that for 16 years after his death, Yuri would rise from his grave by night and terrorize the village. The village priest named Giorgio, who had buried Yuri 16 years previously, discovered that at night, somebody would knock on doors around the village, and on whichever door he knocked, someone from the house would die within the next few days. Yuri also appeared to his terrified widow Ivana in her bedroom, who described the corpse as looking as though he was smiling and gasping for breath, and then would sexually assault her. When Father Giorgio eventually came face to face with the vampire, he held a cross in front of him and yelled, "Behold, Jesus Christ, you vampire, stop tormenting us." The bravest of the villagers, led by Miho Redick, chased and tried to kill the vampire by piercing his heart with a stick of hawthorn, but failed because the stick just bounced off his chest. 1 year later, 9 people went to the graveyard, carrying lamps, a cross, and a hawthorn stick. They dug up Yuri's coffin and found a perfectly preserved corpse with a smile on its face. Father Giorgio said, "Look, Strigon, there is Jesus Christ, who has saved us from hell and died for us. And you, Strigon, you cannot have peace." Then they tried to pierce his heart again, but the stick could not penetrate his flesh. After some prayers of exorcism, Stepan Malazic, one of the villagers, sawed the head off the corpse. As soon as the saw tore his skin, the vampire screamed, and blood started to flow from the cut. According to folklore, peace did finally return to the region after Yuri's decapitation.
Well, I guess that explains why hawthorn doesn't work, but why ash, oak, and yew?
The use of oak, yew, and ashwood in vampire lore is rooted in ancient folklore and cultural symbolism, where specific trees were believed to possess protective or purifying properties against evil and the undead. These woods were chosen for their symbolic contrast with the natural state of vampirism, not for any practical or scientific reason. Different woods are cited in various regional traditions for specific mythological associations. For instance, oak has long been a symbol of strength, resilience, and divinity across many cultures. Its dense, hard nature was believed to be physically effective for pinning a body, while its association with powerful gods made it a favored material for trapping a vampire's essence in Western European traditions. In modern fiction, like the Vampire Diaries, white oak is established as the sole weapon capable of killing an original vampire. As for yew trees, they're strongly associated with death and graveyards in Celtic and British folklore. Remember, in Alden, the village graveyard is near an old yew tree. In the Irish legend of the Abertach, an early vampire figure, a sword made specifically of yew wood was required to finally kill the revenant and ensure it stayed buried. Yew's connection with the cycle of life and death granted it unique power over the undead. And the ash tree is a prominent symbol of purification and protection. In Norse mythology, it is revered as Yggdrasil, the tree of life, which links it to themes of balance that stand in stark opposition to the vampire's existence. Ash was the preferred wood for stakes in Russian and Baltic folklore, and in historical England, an ash stake was sometimes driven through the hearts of suicide victims to prevent them from becoming a vampire.
Good job, Agni. Pretty soon, I'll have both of you going out there with me.
My father would pluck your wings if he saw even one of my scales out of place.
All the more reason for me to be extra protective then.
Oh god, this is so cringe. Next vampire. This one takes place sometime around 1725 and is the case of Petar Blagojević, also known as the Silvo vampire. 1725 is the year Blagojević died. After his death, for just over a week after, a series of other sudden deaths and illnesses plagued the town of Silvo, claiming the lives of 9 other people. Those on their deathbeds claimed to see and feel Blagojevic's hands around their necks during the night. Blagojevic's own wife claimed that he had visited her after his passing to ask for his shoes. She was so terrified she left the village soon after out of fear for her safety. Other attestations state that Blagojević returned from the grave to brutally murder his own son after being refused entry to his home and drank his blood. The villagers led an investigation of Blagojevic's grave to determine if he was really a vampire by looking for telltale signs like growing hair, growing nails, and the absence of decomposition.
But Agni, don't human hair and nails already keep growing after death?
It's wild the sort of things humans ascribe to legend and myth before they have a secular understanding. Still, I think the most fascinating claim of the Blagojević case is how the presiding priest supposedly discovered blood in the mouth. That's definitely more than enough evidence to go about an extermination. They staked him and burned the body, while the villagers were beside themselves with fear.
Arnold Paole is another case similar to Blagojević, because of the direct involvement of the Austrian government, not to mention that he died almost exactly 1 year later to the day of Blagojević in the Serbian village of Medveda. The case was studied by 2 military doctors, and scholars have noted Paolo's case as being a major influence in the depiction of vampires in popular culture. Before his demise, Paolo was vocal that he had been plagued by a vampire, even claiming to resort to the methods of protection we discussed earlier, eating grave soil and smearing himself with vampire's blood. Then, about a year after Blagojević, Paolo died after he fell from the back of a wagon and broke his neck. About a month later, people in the village began to claim they had been plagued by Paolo only recently. This continued for up to 40 days before the villagers all sought assistance from the Austrian military officials stationed there. They opened his grave and saw that his corpse had not decomposed, that his veins flowed with liquid blood. His eyes, nose, mouth, and ears, as well as his shirt and the inside of his coffin, were replete with sanguine horror. They drove a stake through his heart, and a horrible shriek rose up from the body. His head was removed, and his body burned. 4 victims had been claimed by Paolo during the month-and-a-half-long period, and because of this, they too were exhumed in the same fashion to prevent them from returning as vampires as well. But this was only the first of 2 outbreaks attributed to Paolo's vampirism. 5 years later, in the winter of 1731, more than 10 people died in just 7 weeks, some of which were only 2 or 3 days apart. These people supposedly showed no other signs of sickness and were all of varying ages. By December, the death toll increased to 13, ranging from a 50-year-old woman, a handful of teenage boys, a 20-year-old woman, and even a newborn child. Common complaints were stabs of pain in the chest, prolonged fever, and jerking limbs. Dr. Glaser, who had previously investigated Paolo, was told by the public they believed 50-year-old Milica and 20-year-old Slana to be the start of this vampire epidemic, after claims arose that Milica had eaten sheep from which vampires had fed, and that Slana, like Paolo, had smeared herself with vampire blood as a means of protection.
Remind me to never do that, by the way. It seems to have the exact opposite effect.
That's because the blood absorption can actually turn you into a thrall, and dead thralls become vampires.
After 3 months, Dr. Flickinger reported that 17 people had died and corroborated the claim that Milica was the start of a brand new vampire epidemic similar to his study of Paolo 5 years prior. Could it have been Paolo's victims who preyed on the sheep that she ate? Well, it's hard to tell, but both of those doctors were also involved in all of these vampire cases.
Paole and Blagojević are two well-known cases that sparked a vampire controversy of the 18th century. Despite this happening during an age of declined interest in folkloric interpretations, vampires rose to an all-time prominence across Europe, causing mass hysteria for an entire generation. During that time, 16 treaties were written around the theological and philosophical impact of the vampire epidemic. It even drew attention from the French writer Voltaire.
Oh, I love Voltaire. He's such a goth daddy.
Not Aurelio Voltaire, Agni.
What? Anyway, both of you stop looking at me like that. I'm allowed to have an aesthetic attraction once in a while.
Well, let me finish this up with a little lore behind people like me. The Dhampir. Why are we always vampire slayers? The Dhampir comes from Balkan mythology as a being that is typically born of the union between a human woman and a vampire father. In some claims, a woman who is already pregnant may give birth to a Dhampir if she's attacked by a vampire, or a Dhampir can be born naturally from a person born on or after the feast of St. Andrew. Interesting enough. Many people think we're clairvoyant. Really? It's just extremely good pattern recognition. But we can detect vampires by sight, smell, and a sort of feeling in our blood. Dhampirica is an outdated term to refer to female Dhampir. These days, literally all of us just get called Dhampir, Daywalkers, Slayers, or Twilight Children. Except I don't sparkle. Now get this. Because the physical attributes of a Dhampir explain, well, my entire damn look, it's kinda annoying. I feel like such a stereotype. Agni already pointed out the red hair and left-handedness. But also, we're known for having dark, untamed hair, a cunning and courageous attitude, and some kind of dark mark like a tail. Or I guess in my case, wings. I've never met another Dhampir with wings, though. That part's pretty unique, so I chalk that one up to consequence. I can still eat normal food, though the option to bite is always on the table. The only thing I struggle with is citrus for some reason, especially lemons. Maybe I should look up vampires and lemons at some point to see if there's a connection. Hey, so how's that? You guys need anything else from me?
I think that was, all in all, a pretty good video. This script is going to take me forever to edit. How long have we been talking?
Longer than normal. Don't worry. If you need help cutting this up, you know I've got your back. As for you guys watching, I hope you liked this spiritual successor to our last vampire video. Go check out that one next. What Cthulhu said is right. It really is our most popular video.
Thanks, Bree and Andrew, and all you guys. Tune in next week for more art, mythology, and history. In the meantime, keep your steaks sharp, your garlic roasted, and be careful you don't let the wrong one in. I want to thank every one of you once again this week for coming to these ramblings of an anxiety-ridden pyromancer.
And her dragon best friend. We're a small team just doing our best to bring our stories we've loved for decades and hope they're the kind you like too.
With a side info dump of psychology, lore, history, and social awareness.
If this is your first video, we hope you'll stay for another one. And maybe you could consider becoming a subscriber. We'd love to see you again.
Our subscribers can move mountains for a channel like this. The engagement we get just keeps growing each week. You guys are getting the word out and people are listening.
And we really can't express how grateful we are to see our passion project take off. 20 years of love and dedication are here laid bare. Help as much as you care to, but at least watch and talk with us.
Of course, we can't close out a video without giving a shout out to our patrons. Emily Masternardi,
Heinrich 28,
Pammy Poo,
JC Moreland,
Shadow Fox,
Charles Tam,
Arya Gmari,
Lundair Lumen. But also don't forget our channel members, Moose Now,
Jack McLeod,
Plebe64 Potato,
Lundair Lumen,
7 Stars Sanctuary.
and Chained Furry. Many a mickle, max a muckle.
See you next week.